Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton emerge as the big winners in the weekend's U.S. presidential contests. Vote counting is underway in Niger as Uganda's president, Yoweri Museveni, wins a fifth term. And a new film recounts legendary sprinter Jesse Owens' Olympic track victories amidst racial segregation. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. Election officials in Niger are counting the votes from Sunday's presidential and legislative elections. President Mahamadou Issoufou is running for a second five-year term, and he has promised to crush Islamist militants and develop one of the poorest countries in the world. 14 other candidates ran against Issoufou for the presidency, including Seni Umaru, the leader of an opposition coalition.
It feels as though a duty has been accomplished with the electoral process. It is the end of this process, and we believe that God will help us today so that these legislative and presidential elections proceed in peace and serenity in order for the best to win.
Well, critics of Issoufou say he used political repression in the run-up to the vote, arresting opposition supporters, politicians, journalists, and even a singer who released a song critical of him. President Issoufou told the French news agency he is absolutely sure he will win the election and predicted a runoff will not be needed. The results are not expected until sometime next week. Now, joining us live via Skype from Niger's capital, Niamey, where he's covering the election process, is viewers Nicolas Pignot. Nicolas, welcome to Africa 54.
Good evening, Vincent.
Good evening. Now, we have seen accusations, especially from the opposition there, that the president used his powers to arrest some people to make it harder for them. Have you seen any evidence of people who were arrested because they are members of the opposition?
So far, not here during the vote. We have to mention the statement made today by the observers from African Union, ECOWAS, or the Francophonie. They said everything was very peaceful during the vote, who occurred on Sunday. And as you mentioned, many polling stations, everything was okay. There were 25,000 polling stations around the country, and few hundreds were still open today, this Monday, because the electoral material was very late to be delivered on their side. So the Electoral Commission had to make it clear that they could vote still on Monday to be able to vote. So far everything is very quiet. The Electoral Commission is still, counting the bulletins to see what's going on in the country, and everybody's waiting, Vincent.
Now, you spent a few days there. President Mahamadou Issoufou was running against 14 other candidates. What kind of opposition did he have? I mean, is there such a strong opposition against him?
Yes, there is a strong opposition, but let's be honest, Vincent, among the 14 candidates that you have, only 3 or 4 are major players. You have Ama Amadou, the former president of National Assembly. Right now he's in jail for an alleged participation in a baby trafficking. It's a case very famous here, but he was allowed to be a candidate, but he was not allowed to be released from prison to campaign. So it was really weird because he's very popular, especially here in Niamey. Then we just heard Seni Umaru, the MNSD candidate. He was the second in 2011 during the vote. And then you have ABC, that's the nickname for Amadou Boubacar Cissé. He has an international profile, used to work for international organizations in Washington, like the World Bank, IMF, for example. And they are the 3 main opponents to President Issoufou. But you will hear from President Issoufou himself that he has 44 political parties rallying behind him, especially right now the first one. So, I mean, we all heard during the campaign that President Issoufou is going to win by, knockout at the first round, like they did, for example, in Guinea or in Ivory Coast or even in Burkina Faso. But we have to see, Vincent.
Okay, we'll be watching the results as they come in another few days. Thanks a lot, Nicolas.
Thank you, Vincent.
Viewers, Nicolas Pignot reporting live via Skype from Niger. To East Africa now, moving to Uganda particularly. Police have arrested opposition leader Kizza Besigye again Monday, days after he lost a presidential election that he says was fraudulent. Besigye had planned to go Monday to the Electoral Commission headquarters in Kampala to collect evidence as he weighs whether to file a legal challenge. Authorities also raided his party's headquarters and seized data that party officials used for their own tally of the vote. Besigye was arrested multiple times in the past week and throughout the lead-up to the Thursday election that gave President Yoweri Museveni another term in office. While the official election results gave President Museveni about 61% of the vote compared to 35% for Besigye. The president has ruled Uganda since taking power in 1996 coup. Well, Republican Donald Trump and Democrat Hillary Clinton were the big winners Saturday in the latest round of U.S. presidential primary voting. Trump easily won the South Carolina primary, while Clinton won a narrow victory over Senator Bernie Sanders in the Nevada caucuses. VOA national correspondent Jim Malone recaps Saturday's voting.
It was a clear victory for Donald Trump in South Carolina after a brutal primary campaign in which the top contenders traded charges of lying and political dirty tricks.
There's nothing easy about running for president, I can tell you. It's tough, it's nasty, it's mean, it's vicious, it's beautiful. When you win, it's beautiful. And we are going to start winning for our country.
Trump outpaced rivals Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz, who effectively tied for second, as Rubio surged to a strong finish with help from South Carolina's popular governor, Nikki Haley.
Tonight here in South Carolina, the message is pretty clear. This country is now ready for a new generation of conservatives to guide us into the 21st century.
Ted Cruz cast himself as the only true conservative left in the race.
You can go with Washington deal makers, or we can stand together with a proven, consistent, constitutional conservative and bring back morning in America.
Trailing well behind were John Kasich, Ben Carson, and Jeb Bush, who decided it was time to drop out of the race.
But the people of Iowa and New Hampshire and South Carolina have spoken, and I really respect their decision. So tonight, I am suspending my campaign. Yeah.
In the Democratic race, Hillary Clinton held off a last-minute surge by Bernie Sanders and won a narrow victory in the Nevada caucuses.
I'm on my way to Texas. Bill is on his way to Colorado. The fight goes on. The future that we want is within our grasp. Thank you all. God bless you.
The victory could give the former Secretary of State a boost ahead of next week's South Carolina primary, where she's already favored. But Sanders vowed to fight on.
I believe that when Democrats assemble in Philadelphia in July at that convention, we are going to see the results of one of the great political upsets in the history of the United States.
Contenders from both parties now prepare for the so-called Super Tuesday primaries and caucuses on March 1st, when 13 states hold nominating contests with hundreds of delegates at stake. Jim Malone, VOA News, Washington.
Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince Makori. While coming up, the Democratic Republic of Congo and South Sudan await a visit from the UN Secretary General. Stay with us.
Where does the Zika virus come from and how many people around the world are affected? I am Dr. Ruiz. The Zika virus is an emerging mosquito-borne virus, and the World Health Organization has declared the Zika epidemic a global emergency. Over 20 countries have reported the disease, and there is no cure. Among the symptoms are fever, rash, and redness of the eyes. Anyone with symptoms should get plenty of rest, drink fluids, and treat symptoms with over-the-counter medicines. Learn the facts about Zika. Education is your first line of defense.
Well, United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon is traveling to Burundi, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and South Sudan this week. Those nations are embroiled in a humanitarian and insecurity crisis. VOA UN correspondent Margaret Bashir is on top of this story, and she joins us now live from the UN headquarters in New York. Margaret, hi.
Hey, Vincent.
Yes, now, Ban Ki-moon is traveling, is expected to arrive in Burundi today. Just give us a sense of the purpose of his visit to these particular countries that we mentioned.
Right. Well, he's due in Bujumbura imminently, and he is going to meet with members of the opposition and civil society. He intends to meet with President Nkurunziza on Tuesday, so hopefully that meeting will go ahead. You know, Vincent, the UN is extremely concerned about the situation in Burundi. They're very worried that this political, crisis following the April elections could turn into some sort of a full-blown ethnic conflict. They want to avoid that. So I'm sure the Secretary General will be there encouraging Mr. Nkurunziza and opposition members to really start a substantive dialogue and start it quickly.
And then it goes over to the DRC. It's a country that has been in trouble for a long time. What is expected to be his conversation with Kabila?
Right. Well, there's a huge UN presence in eastern Congo. The Secretary General will visit Goma in the east. I'm sure he'll meet with peacekeepers there that are with MONUSCO. But he's also going to go to displaced persons camp in Goma and to meet with people who are affected by the security and humanitarian crisis there. And I believe on Wednesday he's going to meet with Kabila in Kinshasa. And he's also going to attend an investment conference, a Great Lakes investment conference that's happening there.
Another crisis that has been dragging on for a long time, South Sudan, and of course now hope for a government of national unity. Tell us about that particular visit.
Right. Well, the Secretary General has spoken very strongly in the past, repeatedly, about the situation in South Sudan. He has encouraged President Salva Kiir and Riek Machar to put the interests of the people of South Sudan first, put their political rivalries aside. We've seen some movement in the last few days. So he is going to meet with President Salva Kiir, but his office says he has no plans to meet with Riek Machar right now because Mr. Machar is not in Juba. And the Secretary General will only be in Juba while he's there, and he will visit the UN mission in South Sudan. They have protection of civilian sites at some of their bases, and he is going to go visit the one in Juba and meet with people there. You know, the UN is sheltering about 200,000 civilians at these sites across the country.
Well, Margaret, thank you very much for your reporting. We'll be watching as the Secretary General keeps traveling along those countries. Thank you very much. Well, viewers, Margaret Bashir reporting live from the United Nations. Well, the battle over a U.S. Supreme Court vacancy comes into sharper focus this week as the Senate returns to work after a week-long recess, and the White House continues to examine potential nominees. Now, the partisan standoff over replacing Justice Antonin Scalia has been magnified and intensified by election year politics. Now, viewers, Michael Bowman reports.
A nation paid final respects to Antonin Scalia as a partisan brawl rages on. The Senate's majority leader and the chairman of the Judiciary Committee penned an open letter arguing the next president, not Barack Obama, should choose Scalia's replacement on the High Court.
The president was clear about representing his view that the president has a constitutional duty to nominate a successor whenever there's a vacancy on the Supreme Court. And the Senate has a solemn constitutional duty to give that person a fair hearing and a timely yes or no vote.
Republicans insist while Obama may put forth a nominee, the Senate may withhold its consent and delay filling the vacancy until after the November presidential election. A few Republican senators have said the chamber should consider anyone Obama puts forward. Even so, most observers doubt enough bipartisan support would materialize to advance a nomination to a final vote.
The Supreme Court has a vacancy, and your vote in November is your only voice.
Already, interest groups are running ads on U.S. airwaves.
You choose the next president. The next president chooses the next justice.
That is not the way our Constitution works.
The fight has become a central issue on the presidential campaign trail.
When you hear Republicans say they will reject any justice that President Obama nominates, no matter how qualified, well, my friends, let's remind the Republicans. Barack Obama is the President of the United States.
This election will be a referendum on the Supreme Court. And I'll tell you this, I cannot wait to stand on that debate stage with Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders or whatever other socialist they nominate.
The White House could put forth a nominee in a matter of days or weeks. Michael Bowman, VOA News, Washington.
Well, 4 billion people, or 2 out of every 3 on the planet, do not have enough water to meet their basic needs. That is far greater than previously thought, according to a new study that presents a more accurate picture of the problem. The VOA's Roseanne Scubble tells us more.
The drought in Ethiopia is the worst in decades. Infants and small children are at particular risk. Fatuma Hussein lives in the hot and arid Afar region and comes to a local clinic for help as she has no more food at home.
My child is severely malnourished to the point he can no longer do breastfeeding.
Water scarcity is driven globally by population growth, consumption habits, and demands from agriculture. Signs on the landscape are evident, says Ariane Hoekstra, a professor of water management at the University of Twente and co-author of the new study in the journal Science Advances.
Groundwater levels decline, or lake levels decline, or lakes even disappearing, or you see less water flowing in the rivers. And this particularly impacts ecosystems, biodiversity, because of the less water available, and also local communities, for instance, communities that live downstream where the water will no longer flow.
This is the first study to consider water patterns on a monthly rather than an annual basis. It finds that 4 billion people, half from China and India, face severe water problems compared with 2 to 3 billion reported previously. Mexico, North Africa, South America, the Middle East, and the American West are also at high risk. The study creates a new baseline and more accurate measurements to guide policymakers. There's also an important message for the public.
People must become more aware of how much water is being used for everything they consume, and that their consumer choice will affect the amount of water being used for making their products. And that if they consume other things, like, for instance, less meat, they will really save a lot of water.
The key is to use water more sustainably, a mandate that ranks high on the international agenda alongside climate change.
So we should kind of start pricing those water resources, allocate them more wisely, use them more efficiently.
Hoekstra hopes the new data will lead to action to reduce water scarcity, taking into account how to use water more efficiently, how to consume water more sustainably, and how by changing our habits as consumers, we can make a real difference. Roseanne Skirble, VOA News, Washington.
Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54, a new film revisits the legacy of Olympic champion Jesse Owens. We'll be right back.
souhaite bien sûr que ces élections se déroulent dans la paix, que ces élections se déroulent
to provide access to learning opportunities for more than 500,000 children and adolescents.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. James Bond has said goodbye to his latest car. The spies-prized Aston Martin DB10 car, which featured in the latest Bond film, Spectre, sold over $3.4 million. That is much more than the expected $2 million. Now, the auction included cheaper, quirky items alongside the most desirable and expensive Bond artifacts. The items included Bond's cufflinks, cocktail shaker and glasses, plus 007's famous white dinner jacket and bow tie. All the cash raised will go to charities including Doctors Without Borders and the United Nations Mine Auction Service. Well, next up, less than 3 years after launching an ambitious effort to connect the developing world, Mark Zuckerberg boasts his free basic campaign has reached millions of people in some of the world's poorest nations. Critics, including many in the country's growing tech community, complained it was a predatory scheme. Free Basics is intended for people who live in areas with internet service but still can't afford it. While the company has never released detailed usage figures, Facebook says Free Basics has brought more than 19 million people online for the first time. Well, and finally, women in Tokyo workplaces are being offered an unusual method of stress relief. They can pay for a handsome man to wipe their tears away. The emotional service is provided by a company called Ikemoso. To rent a tear wiper for a crying session will cost nearly $70. Now, a session includes watching a sad film, listening to moving short stories and emotional songs, and of course, having your tears wiped away. The men are professionally licensed to make people cry. Throughout Japan, there are around 70 people with these qualifications, and that is what is trending today. Well, it's time now for Monday Sports Report, and joining us now is Sonny Young with the Sunny Side of Sports. Hello, Sonny.
Hello, Vincent, and sporty greetings once again to our Africa 54 viewers. In this Olympic year, a new film is telling the story of one of the greatest Olympians, the late American sprinter Jesse Owens, who won 4 gold medals at the 1936 Olympics in Berlin, Germany. The movie, titled Race, chronicles not just Owens' triumphs on the track, but also his struggles against racism and discrimination. VOA's Penelope Pulu reports.
The youngest of 10 children, Jesse Owens, realized that running fast and winning could be more important than skin color.
Things are going to turn around. You'll see.
Leaving his family behind with a promise for a better life, he enrolls at Ohio State as a track athlete.
Problem, Coach?
No.
You want me to do it again?
Yeah.
Coach Larry Snyder recognizes Owens' potential.
You want to win a gold medal?
Sure.
You want to do it in Berlin?
I heard they don't care much for color folk over there.
Well, they don't care for much here in Columbus either.
The film follows Owens' training and shattering of world records while the U.S. Olympic Committee wrangles over whether to participate in Hitler's Olympics, and members of the African American community ask Owens to boycott the event.
Mr. Owens, how can you justify taking part in Germany when there's so much discrimination here at home?
Despite the mounting pressures, Owens decides to participate. His 4 Olympic gold medals show Hitler's boast about white Aryan superiority for a lie that it is. His victories paved the way for other black athletes. However, he returns to a segregated America as just another black man rather than an Olympic hero. Stefan James, who portrays Owens, says the film celebrates the athlete and what he achieved in spite of the odds.
A film like Race, really shows why it doesn't matter what you look like or where you come from. All that really matters is individual greatness.
The actor acknowledges that America has come a long way since 1936, but says there is still a lot more to be done.
I really feel like this film shows why, not only how far we've come, since those times, but why we can't afford to go backwards.
Congressman John Lewis agrees. At the movie premiere, he addressed the controversy about the lack of diversity in Hollywood.
And the entertainment industry will wake up and start including all of us. Because it doesn't make any difference whether we're African American, whether we're white, Latino, Asian American, or Native American.
For those 10 seconds, you are completely free.
On the track, Jesse Owens symbolized that unity. Penelope Pulu, VOA News, Washington.
Thanks, Penelope. When I was a little boy, I had an up-close and personal moment with Jesse Owens at a stoplight in Norfolk, Virginia. Jesse was on a promotional tour, and he pulled up next to my family's car in a convertible with festive bunting on the vehicle that proclaimed, "Jesse Owens, Olympic champion." I stuck my head out the window and yelled, "Go, Jesse!" Trust me, Africa 54 viewers, Jesse heard me, and he responded with a smile and a wave. I'm VOA's Sonny Young, and that's the sunny side of sports. Vincent?
A moment to cherish, Sonny. Well, thanks a lot, and be sure to watch the sunny side of sports every Monday and Friday on Africa 54. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's Evening Radio Show Africa News tonight at 1800 UTC, and in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0700, 0600 UTC Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching from all of us in Washington. Have a good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute. We have a lot of weather expressions in American English. But some expressions that talk about the weather are not actually about the weather.
Why is everything so quiet in the newsroom today?
We are expecting breaking news from the mayor's office.
Oh, so this is the calm before the storm.
Exactly. When news of her arrest breaks, this place is going to get crazy.
Before most big storms, there is that moment of calm. The air is still, the bugs and birds are quiet. Then the storm starts with rain, wind, thunder, and lightning. In spoken English, the calm before the storm is the period of quiet before something dramatic happens. And that's English in a Minute.